with those who come into your society? Why is the pressure always on us, the problem people? Why don't we say to more white people, integrate better, especially in those areas?
They haven't chosen to move to another country.
The topic of migration and integration in the UK has always sparked debate. But a particularly intense discussion recently brought some fundamental beliefs to the forefront. One of the most thought-provoking comments came from a migrant who boldly proposed that the responsibility for integration should not only fall on newcomers, but also on the white British population. This challenge to the widely accepted notion that immigrants must adjust to the culture of their host country immediately captured attention, igniting strong reactions from the panel. The migrant argued that the process of integration should be shared, especially in areas with large migrant populations, suggesting that the native British population should also play a role in adjusting to the diverse communities around them. She proposed that white Brits should take more initiative to integrate into the changing society rather than placing the entire burden of cultural adaptation on the newcomers. This perspective was particularly surprising as it goes against the traditional understanding of migration, where cultural adaptation is often seen as the responsibility of immigrants. The idea of mutual integration, with both migrants and the host population equally responsible for adapting to each other, turned the discussion on its head. This raised important questions about the expectations of both migrant communities and the native population regarding integration and societal cohesion. The speaker's position ignited a broader conversation about the true meaning of integration and whether it should be a collaborative, two-sided effort, or if one group should bear most of the responsibility. Although some in the audience found it difficult to accept the notion that white Brits should also participate in integration, it is clear that such discussions are becoming more common in contemporary debates about immigration and multiculturalism. Cities like London, which have experienced significant migration, have made these issues more urgent, with both sides of the argument vigorously defending their perspectives. The migrants' argument brought attention to the complexities of integration in a multicultural society, pointing out that it should not be a responsibility limited to one group alone. As the debate continued, some panel members questioned whether this expectation of mutual integration was fair, or if it added yet another unrealistic expectation on the native population. Ultimately, the exchange highlighted the ongoing and vital conversations about immigration policy, identity, and the future of British society, which are likely to continue shaping the national discourse. The debate surrounding immigration often ignites strong reactions, especially when it comes to integration and the responsibilities of both migrant and native populations. In this heated exchange, one of the most provocative moments occurred when a migrant guest suggested that the white British population should put more effort into integrating into communities shaped by migration. This perspective was unusual, as most discussions about immigration focus on immigrants needing to adapt to British society. The migrants' proposal turned this traditional notion on its head, arguing that integration should not solely be the responsibility of newcomers, particularly in areas like London, where large numbers of immigrants have settled. Her argument sparked a vigorous debate, as it challenged the conventional view that immigrants must be the ones to bear the burden of cultural adaptation. Instead, she proposed a more balanced approach, suggesting that the native population, especially white Britons, should also engage with migrant communities, learn about their cultures, and contribute to creating a more inclusive society. This idea of mutual integration was controversial, as it upended the usual expectation that immigrants should conform to the culture of the host country, learn the language, and adopt local customs. The migrants' viewpoint advocated for a more inclusive two-way approach to integration, where both the native population and immigrants would contribute to building stronger bonds and mutual understanding. By doing so, she argued, a more cohesive society could emerge, one that truly embraced diversity and fostered unity. However, this idea was met with resistance. Many panelists questioned whether it was fair to ask the native population to shoulder part of the responsibility for integration. They argued that migrants, having consciously chosen to move to the UK, should be the ones to adapt to British society. This disagreement highlighted the complexities of living in a multicultural society and dealing with the challenges of integration in an era of mass migration. On one side, the argument for assimilation stood strong, with the belief that migrants must adjust to the existing culture. On the other hand, The idea of mutual integration, where both communities share the responsibility, was presented as a way to create a truly inclusive and united society. The debate forced many to reconsider their assumptions about integration in modern Britain, pushing the conversation beyond the traditional one-sided narrative. As tensions mounted and opinions clashed, it became clear that these discussions would continue to shape the future of British society, influencing how immigration, culture, and societal cohesion are viewed and managed for years to come. The ongoing debate about immigration and integration in the UK reached a boiling point as the discussion shifted to the cultural and social impacts of migration on British society. One of the most contentious issues raised was the concern that rapid migration and changing demographics in certain regions were undermining traditional British values and social cohesion. Critics of large-scale immigration argued that the speed of these changes was overwhelming local communities, making it difficult for them to absorb newcomers and leading to divisions. They pointed to areas like London, once seen as the heart of British culture, now increasingly defined by its diversity, which they feared was weakening the nation's cultural identity. These critics also raised concerns about the emergence of parallel societies, where immigrant communities formed close-knit enclaves that retained their own customs and languages, rather than integrating into broader British society. For many, this issue raised serious questions about the future of British identity and the idea that certain elements of British culture should be preserved. The belief that society should remain homogeneous and that cultural traditions should be protected was presented as a safeguard against the perceived dilution of British values. The argument was that preserving a shared sense of community and common values was essential for the nation's unity and prosperity. In contrast, supporters of immigration emphasized the importance of multiculturalism and the positive contributions immigrants make to the country. They argued that diversity should be celebrated, not feared, and that the cultural richness immigrants brought, from food and music to language and traditions, enriched British society. According to this perspective, the evolving diversity of the UK reflected its growth as a modern global nation. These supporters also highlighted immigrants' roles in the UK's economic success, particularly in sectors such as healthcare, agriculture, and construction, and argued that immigrants should be recognised for their contributions instead of being blamed for challenges related to integration. The reality, supporters argued, was that integration wasn't just about cultural assimilation, but about fostering mutual respect and understanding between communities. While acknowledging the complexity of integration, they maintained that it could only succeed if approached in a positive, inclusive manner. However, the debate intensified when the discussion turned to whether integration was being adequately managed by both the government and migrant communities. Some argued that the government's failure to provide sufficient support, such as language programs, employment opportunities, and social services, was a key factor in the struggles immigrants faced in integrating into society. Others contended that the focus on maintaining distinct cultural identities, rather than encouraging full integration into British society, hindered the process. The ongoing debate made it clear that immigration, integration, and the future of British identity would continue to be critical issues in shaping the country's political landscape. The conversation highlighted the need for a balanced, inclusive approach that could navigate the complexities of multiculturalism while safeguarding the core values that define the nation. The ongoing debate on immigration and integration in the UK brought to light a crucial issue: the lack of a cohesive and unified strategy for addressing the challenges faced by migrants in integrating into British society. Critics pointed out that while multiculturalism was often touted as a strength, there seemed to be a glaring absence of clear policies and resources dedicated to supporting successful integration. This lack of infrastructure led to feelings of isolation and segregation among migrant communities, making it harder for them to fully assimilate into British society. The argument was made that integration should not be solely the responsibility of immigrants, but should also be shared by the government and local communities, who have a duty to provide the necessary support and opportunities. Proponents of this idea emphasized that successful integration required a commitment from all involved parties: local councils, employers, and the education system. A particularly pressing issue was the language barrier, which many viewed as a significant obstacle to integration. Without access to affordable language classes or assistance for non-English speakers, many immigrants found themselves at a disadvantage, struggling to find employment, improve their social mobility, or fully engage with the broader community. This lack of support often led to a cycle of exclusion, where migrants remained in their own communities, relying on one another for social support instead of integrating into wider society. On the other hand, critics of immigration policy argued that too much emphasis had been placed on integration without considering the strain it placed on the country's social services and infrastructure. Some believed that the focus on assisting immigrants had led to the needs of the native population being overlooked. They contended that the growing number of migrants had put pressure on essential services such as healthcare, housing, and education, making it harder for everyone to access these resources. While this view was often criticized for being divisive, it highlighted the need for a more balanced approach that accounted for both the needs of the local population and the opportunities available to migrants. The question of whether immigrants should be expected to integrate more quickly or whether the host society should do more to facilitate integration continued to spark intense debate. Some felt that immigrants should be encouraged to embrace British culture and values, while others argued for a more inclusive society where all cultures could coexist respectfully and peacefully. The conversation made it clear that there were no simple solutions to these complex issues. Immigration and integration are inherently connected to questions of identity, social cohesion, and economics. To resolve them, careful planning and cooperation from all sides are essential. Ultimately, the debate underscored the need for an open and honest discussion about integration, recognizing that while diversity brings significant benefits, it also requires active efforts from both migrants and the host society to ensure a harmonious, inclusive future. The debate over immigration and integration has become more contentious, with communities grappling with the challenges of accommodating newcomers. One of the central issues in this debate is the tension between preserving national identity and embracing diversity. Many argue that in order for immigrants to successfully integrate, they must adopt aspects of the host country's culture and values. This view is based on the belief that integration is a shared responsibility, requiring both the efforts of immigrants and the acceptance of the wider community. However, others believe integration should not demand the erasure of cultural identities. They argue that multiculturalism, when approached with respect, can enhance society and foster unity while celebrating diversity. The discussion surrounding integration is also shaped by political narratives. Political figures often use immigration to advance their agendas, presenting migrants as either a threat or an opportunity, depending on their stance. Advocates of stricter immigration controls argue that unchecked migration threatens national values and strains public resources. This rhetoric often portrays immigrants as outsiders who must assimilate fully or be seen as a burden. Conversely, those who support open immigration policies highlight the skills, cultural diversity, and fresh perspectives that migrants bring. They stress the importance of inclusive policies that allow immigrants to feel welcomed and empowered to contribute to society. These opposing viewpoints often lead to heated debates about how integration should be approached. Should immigrants be expected to fully embrace the culture of the host country, or should the host society be more flexible and accommodating, allowing for a pluralistic approach? The answer is not straightforward. Many argue that successful integration requires balancing respect for the rights and traditions of immigrants with the need to ensure they embrace key aspects of the host society, such as the language, legal system, and civic responsibilities. Education, language acquisition, and community building are seen as essential programs that can help migrants transition and contribute fully to society. Others suggest that fostering mutual understanding and respect is key, encouraging both immigrants and native citizens to learn from one another and collaborate to address shared challenges. Ultimately, the issue of integration raises broader questions about identity, belonging, and the future of multicultural societies. As the debate continues, it is crucial to recognize that immigration is not just about policy, but also about human connection. By creating spaces where dialogue flourishes and differences are celebrated, societies can create environments where everyone has the opportunity to belong, regardless of their background. The debate around immigration and integration often brings to light the complex challenges faced by both newcomers and the host society. A central issue is finding a balance between maintaining national identity and creating an inclusive space where diverse cultures can flourish. The question of how much responsibility lies with immigrants to adapt to the host country's values versus the willingness of the host society to embrace and understand immigrant cultures sparks ongoing debate. Supporters of stricter integration policies argue that for a society to function cohesively, newcomers must fully adopt the language, customs, and values of the host country. This perspective believes that shared cultural understanding is essential for unity and social cohesion. On the other hand, proponents of multiculturalism advocate for a more inclusive approach. They believe diversity should be celebrated and that integration does not require complete assimilation. Instead, they argue it should involve a mutual exchange of cultures where both immigrants and the native population contribute to and learn from each other. From this viewpoint, integration is not about forcing conformity, but about creating a society where different cultures coexist and complement one another. As the discussion continues, it becomes evident that no single solution fits all. The process of integration is complex and requires efforts from both immigrants and the broader community to foster understanding, respect, and a shared sense of belonging. Whether through education, community initiatives, or open dialogue, successful integration hinges on recognizing the value that diverse perspectives bring to society. The challenge lies in finding a path that allows both immigrants and the native population to coexist harmoniously while respecting their unique cultural identities. See you again.